Bum, ba, ba, bum, 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 bum. Yes, folks, it's Friday, so of course that means it's 2d6 Friday. Now, you could call this a Dread special, although I'm not sure how many elements of Dread you need for it to be considered a special, because we are going to be talking about Dreadball version 2, and also we're joined by international wargaming expert and analyst, Dready.
Hi, how's it going?
So
Welcome to the live show.
that's two elements of Dread in one show. Do you think that's enough to call it the Dread special?
I guess everything, I guess. And it's Dreadball version 2, and there's Dreadball and Dready on one show. So there you go.
Yeah, do you think we need to maybe create a sense of dread among the audience as well?
They might already have a lot of that at this point.
Yeah, they might actually. Looking at some of the people in the comments, I think there should be a fair amount of dread going around. So we'll say hello to the audience in a minute, but we've got a few juicy things to delve into this week. Of course, Dreadball being one of them. We're also going to talk about Battletech and the kind of new version of that you've been playing. And then we've got some new GW releases to look at, which I know you're not too thrilled with one particular aspect of them, that being the price.
Yeah, it's stupid.
But we'll get to that at the end. So here we go. Let's move on to the first thing, which is Dreadball. Now, before we look at any of the exciting images from version 2, let's talk about how we originally got into Dreadball, shall we? Because we're both wily old Dreadball veterans who grew a little bit tired of it in recent times as the years, months and years rolled on. So
yeah.
What was your first exposure to it before I tell my tale?
Let's see. I think I was on it almost right from the start. I didn't get on the first Kickstarter, but as soon as it was in the actual stores, I didn't buy a team, but I got the actual game with the two teams for, I think, my birthday, close to when it was out, something like that. So I had like two teams right from the start, and I brought it to the gaming club. And at first we played a few games with just like proxy figures, and I had like a proper team, and all of a sudden everyone had a team just because it was so easy to go into the gaming store and like spend not that much money on one of those VHS cases with a complete team in it. And I think most people even had their team time, and I think we played at least 2 leagues, which was fun. And like just lots and lots of pickup games just to get into the game. And my main strategy, I played the Marauders, the Orcs. I never cared about actually scoring. My main goal was just to kill as many opposing players as possible.
Since
In the
since
amount
I
of
mainly
turns
play the
that
monkeys, it's
I
lucky I
had.
don't know much about scoring.
So like in the end of the leagues, like my team was the most beefy and overpowered team ever, but I was always at the bottom of the actual score list because I never scored. I just killed people, which was like my personal meta. That's why I played the game, just like the kill arena, not the dreadball arena. And yeah, it was fun. So
When did you start to kind of drift away from it then? Was it just you that lost interest, or was it the local community in general?
I think it was most people, not really at once, but around the same point. Like everyone had just played a billion games, and there wasn't much new to explore. We also had played on the multi-pitch, where you have 3 teams against each other, which was my personal favorite way to play Dreadball. Was this multi-pitch? It was amazing, and that was kind of the pinnacle of Dreadball for me. We played a few games of that, and then it was kind of, I feel like I finished the game after that, which was a bit sad. And then, of course, there's Dreadball Extreme, which I never got into. Because at that point, I've already kind of lost sight of Dreadball, and I was like, nah, I don't know. Takes at least, I don't know, 3 players from each species. Like, I'm done for now.
So, how I got into it, when I got back into wargaming a few years ago, I was entirely interested in Warhammer Fantasy at the time, and then strictly Games Workshop products, until I became more exposed to other games via all big YouTube channels at the time, like the Beasts of War channel and so on, who did quite a bit of coverage of Dreadball. And when I went to the Grumpy Old Wargamers convention, the legendary game designer Mr. James Hewitt was doing demos of Dreadball, since he was with Mantic at that time. He was one of the various brains behind Dreadball. And after that one demo game, it was only like 3 or 4 turns, but I immediately felt like I knew how to play because it was really easy to just pick up and figure it all out. So I immediately bought the little starter set.
Yeah, it's true.
Then I got the expanded set with the referee and all the cards and whatnot in it. And then eventually I went through a few different teams, collecting them, got to the monkeys, which I love playing as, even though with my terrible dice rolling, I never got any coaching dice because they generate a random amount. And I never, ever got 3. I can't think of any time I got 3 coaching dice. So that let me down a bit. And I think I ended with about 5 teams. I got the 2 starters. That would have been the humans and the orcs. I got the rat men as well, but I didn't really play with them much. It was mainly the monkeys and the Forge Fathers that were my passions, especially the monkeys, the Blue Moon Keys, for anyone that's seen my team, which is an amazing name, by the way. And I played a lot of games. I played a lot of online games of it as well over Hangout. You can't do the advanced rules over Hangout because you need cards and such, but you can play the basic rules over Hangout with someone telling you which hex to move the model into. And it was a lot of fun for quite a while. But there were 1 or 2 issues. It got a little bit boring for me. It felt like you were somewhat limited, and there wasn't, other than just the monkeys, not all the teams have the same level of randomness. So it felt like certain games you could kind of predict how it was going to go. But I did really like the game, though, the overall mechanics. The fact that it flows so much faster than, let's say, Blood Bowl. And someone did actually ask in one of the pre-show comments whether Dreadball was better than Lewd Bowl. Lewd Bowl, of course, being a reference to the poster in your background there, which I'll put the camera on now. See that Lewd Bowl is a very big game back in the 90s, especially Lewd Bowl. And to compare the two, it's really a lot faster, isn't it, Dreadball?
It's way faster. The rules are really strict. Play a bit of Blood Bowl, but I never really got into Blood Bowl because the rules were really, really clunky. I loved like making teams and playing a few games, but I never really stuck with it. And Dreadball made that aspect easy because you didn't have to learn a billion rules, and it was kind of intuitive how you played. I liked that. So yeah.
Did you have any issues with the game? Because the one thing that I've heard around the community is that it wasn't particularly balanced because they brought out such a huge amount of teams in a short space of time. And some of them were essentially the same. They had all the same stats, but they have this extra rule that makes them better, and they don't have anything to draw that back. So some teams were just, it's not even opinion, it's just fact that certain teams were better than others.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But I personally never really cared because I just played for the kill factor. And I was only annoyed by the Teratons and their stupid teleport ability or whatever it was because it was so hard to kill them. Like, as I said, I didn't care about striking. I just wanted to kill players. So the Teratons were hard in that regard, which rhymes.
They were especially hard for the monkeys, actually, because the trick to the Z's, of course, is to pile a load of players illegally onto the pitch and then wait till you've got lots of coaching dice and just like hit someone in the back and take them out. But obviously you can't do that to the Teratons. So that's
they were annoying.
It's one of the main Z strategies completely out the window there, because you don't want to be throwing the ball around too much with the monkeys that are terrible with it in the first place.
Yeah. I loved killing Asterians, so like you could just tear them apart with orcs. Once you had like a bit of a like level team. I also used the star player a few times. What was his name? The orc star player, Buzzkill. bust something. Like he has like a wife beater shirt. He doesn't wear armor on his like upper body because he's so tough. I think the game got a bit silly. A bit silly, yeah, when they introduced the colossals. I think we had all the colossals, but we rarely used them because it was a bit weird. They just threw the game even more out of the window, like the balance than it already was. I personally didn't mind as much, but other people did. So
It seemed
was
like all the releases that they had for Dreadball within the first, let's say, 18 months could have been spread out over 5 years. They kind of really blitzed the marketplace with like add-ons and new teams, didn't they? They weren't really patient. They saw the success that Dreadball was initially, and they just went kind of nuts and just threw everything at us at once.
Yeah, that's why I didn't get into Dreadball Extreme, because I was just oversaturated with stuff already, because we had just gotten into the later, like the expansion rule books with the new teams, and then like the 3-player pitch, and then the Colossals, as I don't know, and new star players left it. Greetings from Natasha at Dready. Oh, hi. Yeah, greetings back. I know who that is.
We've got quite a few people in the audience now. A few of them are very active in the chat there, especially Bazooka J Rambo and Mickey Genver, who've been having a very long conversation in there about chocolate oranges. I don't know how anyone would want to discuss oranges on this show, though. I don't know what planted that thought in their head. So, obviously, both of us would be interested in ways that they could make Dreadball version 2 more interesting, and I'm sure they're going to. So let's have a look at the Mantic blog for a second and look at some of the potential changes that are coming. Some of them don't seem that huge, and some of them do. So first of all, there's some nice new artwork there.
Right.
A couple of new teams there, some robots, which are different from the other robots, clearly. And these guys here as well. It's kind of alien-like with the hair coming out there. And some of the new stuff here. Now, I don't know how we're supposed to pronounce this. Indige.
This is the Indige. Yeah, I suppose.
Indige. Okay, yeah. So I don't know what they... Let's see what it says about them. Quick, agile. Okay. So I'll be interested to see how they make that anyway different from the other quick, agile races. And the space robots. I would imagine these will be quite similar to the existing robots, except they don't change form.
I think it's sports robots, not space robots, even though that it could be both.
Yeah, they are space robots, though.
Yeah, they are. I like the sumo guys, though.
Sumo lizards.
Yeah.
Again, it's all very well having these new teams, but I'd like to see how they're going to be different in the stats from the existing teams before I judge them.
Yeah. Like, if the sumo team is really killy, then I might actually go for it. If they are better in murdering people than orcs, then I might go for the sumo reptiles, lizards, whatever.
I imagine they'll be somewhere between orcs and Forge Fathers, maybe. Really difficult to shift because obviously they're sumo, so they're going to be difficult to nudge out the way. But also, I imagine they can squash people as well.
I like ogres, and they're kind of ogre-like, even though they're lizards. But that's alright. I like lizards.
Ogre lizards. And the new ref bot with
not
different
much
head
difference
options.
there. There's a bit of a different head, but that mini is so tiny and flimsy that you don't even see much of it normally. It's just there, kind of. Well, it's not really an eye catcher unless you paint it in neon colors.
As a Z player, I hope to see absolutely nothing of the referee, since the whole idea is to cheat the whole time. So I like to have the referee right at the other end of the pitch permanently. Now, a coach here as well, so more coaches coming in by the looks of it. I would like to see the coaches and the cheerleaders and that kind of stuff given more of a role in just your standard games rather than just in leagues.
Yeah, that would be fun. You could spend like team points on those and just have them in one-off games.
So that's the first Mantic blog that features the Dreadball stuff, and a second one just came out. I think this was today. You can see a nice extra full color version of these pictures. That looks pretty sweet. And they've gone into the different types of these sports robots. Striker, Jack, Guard. And there's the Indige. And the new ball is an interesting one as well. It's apparently slightly bigger, so Dreadball has bigger balls in the new version. And it has a little base for it as well. And if you can take it out of the base, though, when the player has it, and you can stick it into the player's base now.
Do you think you can stick that extra base into a hex base? Just to make it more usable?
I don't know.
It looks a bit too small still, but that would be a good feature. I mean, you can just glue it on, like the lower part, and then just take the ball off when you need it and put it on player bases.
They've also kind of chiseled away into the front of the bases as well.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so you can see which direction they're facing.
Yeah,
even though
my team is...
Yeah, some people just painted the edge of the base, or like me, I used transparent, like see-through paint on the top, so you could tell which was the front and which was the back.
Right, I just painted my front arc, I think green or something.
Yeah, that's a very easy way to do it, and the ball sticking out there, it's not going to be sliding around the table all the time.
Yeah, it still looks fiddly. Like, I know a lot of people who have like really big fingers, and they was like, oh, the ball, and now they have to take that tiny ball and not just put it on a base, but stick it into a tiny fiddly hole. Like, I see hilarity arising there in a few instances.
It's entirely possible hilarity will arise with little fiddly holes in the new version of Dreadball. Now, one thing I've heard is that they're going to be adding new player types. So rather than just Striker, Jack, and Guard, they're going to have other ones as well. Because in the previous Dreadball, when you were playing in a league and you skilled up your players, you kind of gained the ability to become a different player position, didn't you?
Yes.
By gaining different skills. But it seems like they're just going to bring that in as standard now, rather than just the three main types, which is something I approve of, definitely. Anything that adds more variety to the game.
Maybe they bring out the Captain Jack.
Tee-hee-hee-hee.
Ah, hey, oh, da, da, da.
But maybe you'll also see more variety of what people have in their team, rather than just, this is the standard team, these are the 6 players that I'm going to have on the pitch at all times. You know exactly what you're coming up against. Maybe if you have all different player types, then you'll see different things within each team. So it's going to be less predictable. Again, though, adding more stuff, are they going to be able to balance it all?
We need more stuff. I personally think, it's just my personal opinion, I think this game doesn't need to be balanced. You just pick the team you have the most fun with, and then you just roll against the odd of the dice. And it might be higher against you, it might be lower. But if you have the right spirit, you will just roll with the punches. And just find your own play style and deal with it.
That's pretty much how I play as well, but the whole community's interest in the game did start to drop, and maybe the lack of balance was one thing that caused that. So that would affect things like tournament attendances, surely.
Yeah.
So I assume they'll look to address that. Let's get off the old screen share for a minute now, because I think we've looked at everything here. And people can see our wonderful faces again. So, looking at what they've done with Dead Zone, I assume they're going to take some of those lessons into Dreadball. If they did, that would mean they're going to remove cards, remove coaching dice, and bring in special dice that you roll at the start that give you different things depending which side comes up. If they did that for Dreadball, I think that would probably be a good thing. I think so too. Cards can overcomplicate things a bit too much.
Yeah, I personally think that the less cards a game has, the better it is. Unless it's something like Triumph and Treachery, where you have like one deck of cards and it's like a special thing, but in general, I'm not a fan.
Cards aren't always a bad thing, it depends on the game, but if the game mechanics work perfectly well without cards, you don't need to kind of shove them in. I think the special dice mechanic, like in Dead Zone now, would work well with Dreadball. If you get this particular side of the dice, you can move someone an extra hex. If you get this side, you can throw the ball for free. If you get this side, you get a special ability.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good, I think.
I think that would
More
be
straightforward.
that would be an excellent change. Other things they did with Dead Zone, of course, they streamlined a lot of the other rules. I'm not sure where Dreadball could be streamlined from a mechanics perspective, because it was always pretty straightforward. Is there anything that you can think of that you would like to see simplified a bit?
Not on the top of my head, really. I was always really pleased with how Dreadball worked in that regards. Like, I don't have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that needed to be like toned down or streamlined particularly in terms of the basic rules. It was really just the cards, I think, added a layer of time wasting perhaps that didn't need to be there. And with dice, they could improve that. Also, one thing I've heard that might be changing is the board, not the layout, because they don't want to invalidate people's old Dreadball boards, but I'm hearing that maybe they're going to make the hexes a bit bigger.
Yeah, might be a good idea.
Just to give you more space, because a lot of models do overhang the edge of their hex base.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Just for playability, could be a good idea.
Also, if they're thinking of expanding the hexes, does that mean, is that a little clue that perhaps they'd be thinking of adding tokens to the game as well that you could put next to your players if there's more room in their hex? Who knows, because you can't really do that at the moment other than resting it on their base.
Yeah, unless it's kind of like something that actually slots around the hex space and you just put it under the base and then you put the player down. Like a ring. Like that would be a good idea, I think.
Do you think they're going to stick with the way the turns work now, where everyone moves all their players, then the other player moves all theirs, or do you think they'll have maybe kind of alternate activations? I think how it works now is okay, but I'm sure they've tinkered with the idea of going to alternate activations, since that's what they use in some of their other games.
Yeah, it could happen. I mean, it would make the game a bit more involved for both players at the same time. Like, you don't have to wait a full turn and then someone is sitting there like, oh, where do I move that guy? And they still have like, I don't know, like 4 guys to move, and you're like, oh no, this will take half an hour, and then you just make you move. You already know how you move, and you have to wait. I think an alternate activation would speed things up a bit.
Yeah, because at its worst, having each player move all their models and then hand over to the other person in a board game like that, how it can be sometimes, if the opponent has set something up that you didn't see, it can feel like, in drafts or checkers, where there's one piece and it kind of goes bounce, 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 and it takes like 10 of yours, and then suddenly they go, well, I win. What even just happened? That's how occasionally how games like Dreadball can go when the other person gets to move all their pieces.
It's true.
So I'm sure it's something they've considered. Whether they'll go with it or not, I don't know. I'm sure there are pros and cons to both of them. Obviously, it would be more difficult passing the ball around if the other person's going to get a turn immediately after you throw it. So it would greatly change the dynamics of the game, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
If anyone in the comments has anything to say about Dreadball, then feel free, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But another thing we're going to talk about now, because I'm sure when the actual Dreadball Kickstarter comes out, we're going to have more thoughts on it as well, as more details are revealed. But for now, I think that pretty much sums up our thoughts on it, doesn't it?
Yes.
For the moment. So let's talk a little bit about Battletech, shall we?
Yes, another game with hex spaces.
Yes, so it could be the Hex
Space
Special.
Friday.
Yeah, the Hex Special rather than the Dread Special. So, this is a game that you've been into quite a bit, and one of the things you pointed out when you first got into it was that it was acceptable to get into the main version of the game because you had someone to play with who was an expert already and could teach you, and that it wasn't ideal for maybe 2 new people to learn.
Yeah. I think I need to rectify that a little bit because there are actual starter rules in the starter box. So when you buy the starter box. It's called the something year anniversary box. You get 1 billion mechs. I don't know, like 20 or such, enough to last you your whole Battletech lifetime if you want, if you're not that ambitious. Like with that amount of mechs, you can play a game that literally lasts like almost a whole week in real time if you want to play like that. And you get the full rules, the full complex rules. Battletech is really complex, but there's also starter rules in there. And you can just, if you want, if you're not into the super crazy depths of the rules, you can just use those starter rules forever and be happy forever, and just play the game like that. Which might have been what would have happened with Mr. Paul and me if suddenly there hadn't been an old friend of ours who walked in and was like, Battletech! And then he just ran to the table and was like, this is how it works. And he explained, and he became our like campaign, what is it called? And
Guru.
so we got instantly into the advanced rules, but the starter rules are super straightforward. It's pretty much just like roll 2 dice, see if you hit, where do you hit, you do X damage. Once you cross out counters on like a max body part, it's out. Pretty much as
So is
straightforward
it kind of
as
similar
that.
to how the damage works in War Machine then?
It's familiar. Like on your actual mech sheet, I don't have one here right now. You have like a diagram of the mech, and you have little bubble body parts. And once those bubbles are filled out, gone, and then you have a second diagram which shows the same mech, which less bubbles, which is the inner structure. And once you get into the inner structure, you start to do real damage. Like first the armor absorbs damage, and then once the strike, internal explosions and ammunition explosions and tons of like mech parts that can fail, and it's hilarious.
Where does Alpha Strike come into
Actually,
this?
it's really interesting what can happen. The tech version for people who always say Battletech, it's played on like a hex grid. I don't like playing on a hex grid. I like proper terrain, which is legit. I like proper terrain. I can also, what's it called? I also like playing on hex spaces, on hex grid, just because everything is 100% clear. There is no arguing. There is no half an inch out. It's always, that's just how it is. Pretty much, which is really good for a tactical game like classic Battletech. Alpha Strike plays more like a fast skirmish game. It uses completely the same dice roll mechanics as Battletech Classic does. So if you play Alpha Strike and you get into Battletech Classic later, you are already familiar with the basic way the game goes. Just all the tables you normally roll on for damage, for all your modifiers, they're a bit more streamlined, a lot actually. Just in comparison, I played my first Alpha Strike game a while ago, and I think we played for like 2 hours, 8 mechs on each side, 2 hours. The same game in Battletech Classic would probably go about 10 hours-ish, unless you're really, really good with the rules. 8 to 10 hours, I would say, something like that. So there you can see the difference in how Alpha Strike is streamlined and actually allows you to use 3D scenery, just like in other games. It doesn't use a hex grid. You just measure your distances, and that's pretty much it.
So, someone like me, who has about a zillion hours in MechWarrior Online, and is therefore interested in all the various mechs and the world and everything, if I were to come in with no experience of playing the tabletop version, would things I've learned from the PC game help me be familiar with what I'll be expected to figure out on the tabletop?
Yes, in certain regard, you already know a lot of components that you can put in mechs. You can actually completely build your own mechs in Battletech Classic, at least, and so you already know what an ECM module does, or how certain weapons, like you have an idea of what certain weapons do, like long-range missiles. You know they can shoot indirectly, they shoot really far. The inner sphere ones can't shoot under a certain distance, stuff like that. So you already have an idea, like a general idea you maybe want to use and how effective it could be. And I think, yeah, it would be an advantage over someone who had no idea at all about the Battletech universe and mechs and weapons and things.
So really, you would understand what everything means.
Yes.
So it translates really well. They were quite faithful to the original material then.
They were kind of faithful, yeah. You all the different like mech parts, the technology, everything. It's pretty much the same, just put into tabletop rules.
Here's an interesting question.
As I said, you can build your own mechs. Oh.
Are Arctic cheetahs equally annoying in the tabletop version as they are in MechWarrior Online?
I haven't seen an Arctic cheetah because we actually play a clan ghost bear in our campaign. So we all have clan mechs, and we don't have an Arctic cheetah yet to play on our side. So I can't say much about that. But other light mechs certainly can be very annoying because maneuverable. They fly away on the jump jets and you can't shoot at them, even though you're a giant just timber wolf and can only shoot your LMs at them, and then you don't hit and it's annoying and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm still not at the point, by the way, where I would be able to build my own mechs in Battletech Classic. To be honest, I haven't really looked into it. I'm just like, I like this standard loadout, let's go with it. Pretty much like it was in MechWarrior Online for me, where I played just with the normal loadout for forever before I actually went into all the crazy things that you can do with your mechs in MechWarrior Online.
Oh, we've got a new audience
and
member.
It might happen.
Dino Titan Edition has appeared in the audience. Hello. A few other people have as well, but they haven't commented. They must just be lurking. So,
sitting there painting.
I've considered buying a couple of Battletech miniatures, mainly because I've played them on the PC. Things like maybe a king crab, just because they look so cool. But a reputation Battletech has had over the years is that the miniatures are not very good. They used to be really, really terrible. Some of the new ones look better, but what's the overall standard at the moment?
I can say entered quite a few Battletech mechs now for our campaign, and I have my own Lance for Alpha Strike. And the models themselves are a bit hit and miss. There's also a lot of resculpts popping up. Like over the last years, a lot of stuff got resculpted, re-released. Like I have an Atlas, which looks amazing, a metal Atlas. And then there's the plastic Atlas from the starter box, which is a bit like meh. Or the timber wolf from the starter box, and then you see the metal model and it looks way cooler. In general, I'm really okay with the miniature, so I haven't had a Battletech miniature in my hand so far where I would just say like, nah, I'm never rush. Like it works. I mean, they're battle mechs. They don't have like a zillion details like skin pores or stuff like that. So
right.
I think they work out quite well. And in general, you could what's the name of the website? Unit. It's the official website from Catalyst Games for Battletech Alpha Strike, and you can get all the little cards for each mech. You can just download them and print them out, so you have all the values for all the mechs out there for free. And I think there's also a starter PDF for Alpha Strike. and you just need like the full rule book, which is like €40 once, and get like 4 mechs for yourself to start out, which it depends where you buy them. I think I spent like €25 on my Lance.
That's very
But
reasonable.
It is. Still, Battletech Classic, way cheaper to get into. The starter box like €50, and you have everything forever if they're not after like really, really special mechs or clan mechs. With Alpha Strike, it's a bit more pricey. You also obviously need terrain and a table. And it's also a really small scale, so you can't just put like a Warhammer castle there and expect it to look right. It's just, it's a thing.
I think I'll probably buy one, depending if I can find one that looks really cool, because there are a few that look really cool in the PC game that don't look quite so cool in the miniature. And then there are a few where it's kind of the other way around. So I'll have to find the sweet spot and then paint one of them nice and orange and see how that goes and work from there.
I can tell you that I'm not in crap model, actually. I mean, in MechWarrior Online, they obviously updated the designs and did a lot more with them. So all the MechWarrior Online stuff looks way cooler than the actual model. So yeah, it's different. It can be very different in surprising ways.
I have to find one that lives up to the idea that's been planted in my head by MechWarrior Online.
Urban mechs are great. They always work.
Good old urban mechs. I don't know how you convinced me to try and get an urban mech up to speed on MechWarrior Online.
I have an urban mech on Master and MechWarrior Online, by the way, just in case people don't know that. It's worth it.
I'm getting there. Close. Not too far now. Now, people in the audience have been talking about some very bizarre things. People were comparing lengths of each other's tongues, apparently, talking about chocolate oranges, and asking if we talked about Lewd Bowl. Yes, we did. We discussed the differences between Lewd Bowl and Dreadball. We didn't talk too much about Lewd Bowl, I suppose, though. So how much of that did you actually play back in the day?
See, I think I played about one game when it actually, like, in the mid-90s. I think I've only played one game. I had an orc team, which I then later salvaged for my 40k orc army in 2nd edition, and just made them into 40k orcs. But 10 years in the early days of my actual gaming club that I'm in right now, I think I played about, I would say, like 10 games. I didn't play too much, just because it was always a big like, oh no, and then you had to print out made pages over pages, and it was confusing. I was quite a bit into the actual PC games that came out later, though, the last one. Not Dreadball 2, but the first one.
Yeah, I didn't play that much Lewd Bowl on the tabletop back in the day. I did have a Chaos team with some Chaos Warriors and the Beastmen that had like tentacles sticking out and everything. I played a handful of games. I don't think I ever actually painted them.
Yeah.
And then I played a few games of it on the PC as well. Not a huge amount, though. I know people that were way more into it. I don't think I actually played it online, really. I tried to play one of the little campaigns. But with me and PC games, I have to play them for a few hours before I get really into it. Like, even if it's the best game ever, I'll play it for an hour, then put it down for a week, then play it for an hour, then put it down for a week, then suddenly play it for a billion hours, all in one go. But with Blood Bowl, I never really got to that point with it. So
what prolongs the lifespan of the PC game for me was just playing online against Jin, which was fun. And the tabletop game, I had a Chaos Dwarf team, and I think I sold it at some point. Kind of regret that.
Now, speaking of selling things, I think we should move on to another topic now. Because there is something, if you want to buy, you may have to sell body parts to afford. So, heading over to the GW website, and we can see here that these pre-Heresy Space Marines are out. So, looking at that squad of 10, are they exactly the same models that you would get in the Betrayal at Kelth box?
Yeah, I think it's 100% the same spruce.
Okay, so how much is the
no
betrayal at
question
Calth
about
and
it.
how much do you get in it?
Click on that thing and it will show us directly, like on that banner. I think it's 120 euro or something is the boxed game. There we go.
Betrayal at
The
Calth,
whole travesty
£95, and what you get in there is
is everything.
that like 2 squads?
I
Let's
think
see.
it's a three tactical squads. It's 1 Contemptor Dreadnought. It's 1 unit of Terminators, and 2 HQ guys. 1 in a Terminator armor, 1 not.
So quite a lot of
And
stuff.
I
then.
actually I made like I had made a really cool Black Legion army list for 40k just out of that box, just all chosen. I kind of played around with the sprues, and it's a great box just to play around with, and you have so many possibilities. You can do a bit of converting here and there. I got a full Havoc squad out of it with all rocket launchers. I had to get 1 X from the old Space Crusades bits box, the spare bits. To actually complete that, but yeah, 3
Right.
squads of Chosen, 1 Contemptor.
There's the full
Terminators.
content then. So,
Yes.
looking at how much of that costs what, if we ignore the actual game pieces like the cards and the board and everything, just purely looking at the miniatures, let's say, so this thing's probably, if you were buying that separately, you would expect that to be, if it was just a regular Dreadnought, probably like
40 euro.
Yeah, about £30 maybe to buy separately.
Yeah.
A squad of tactical marines is usually about the same. Terminators about the same, and these guys would be like £15 maybe.
Characters,
So
15
you're
to
getting really
20
good value
euro.
in this box because
It's the best
you're not
value.
paying that much for all this anywhere near.
Yeah.
However,
And then you're like, oh, I want 1 extra, like, just normal squad of Space Marines that fits them, and then you pay like 30 quid, and you're what?
£30 for one
I could just
squad.
you could just 90 again and get 3 of those squads plus all the other stuff which you can trade in, you can sell it, you can do whatever with it, and get so much more out of it. I really don't understand it.
Why would anyone in their
Surprising,
right
and they're not even
mind? It makes no sense whatsoever.
not even different options on them. It's just completely the same spruce that you get in the Betrayal at Kel's box.
Why would you do that when you get 3 squads for £95 plus everything else?
Maybe they're counting on some people by being like, oh, I don't have any friends I trade bits with, or I could sell stuff to, or I don't know how to use eBay. I will just spend 30 quid and get an extra unit of, I don't know, Terminators. No, they're 40 actually. Holy crap.
I don't understand it at all. And apparently the Dreadnought is completely unposable, and it's the same one from the box that they're now selling
It's
for
so stiff.
£35.
You have to completely cut it up to make it look more interesting.
Yeah, I've seen people do some nice conversions with it. But yeah, why would you just not buy this box, and then if you don't want some of it, just stick them on eBay?
Yeah, or get like 1 or 2 friends and buy it together if you're all like into 30k stuff right now, which I think most people who want this stuff are. They have certain friends who play 30k. They all want to play it. Pretty much every faction is Space Marines. It's just, there's like a bit of like Imperial Guard now too and stuff like that, but most are just Space Marines. This is a perfect box to just buy with like 2 or 3 friends and just split it up, and everyone takes what they need.
Yeah, from a business point of view, I can understand them doing this. If people are actually willing to pay £30 for 1 squad, and then someone in a suit is just laughing about it because they could have just bought this box and got so much other stuff.
Yeah, if the box was out of print, it would be a dick move, but it would make more sense than this right now. It's just weird. Just really weird.
Yeah, I don't really get it. I could see people buying another Contemptor Dreadnought for £35 because you only get 1 in the box. So I can actually understand them doing that. To a lesser extent, the Terminator, paying nearly half the price of the box for a very small percentage of the box by buying them. But it's these guys that make no sense because you get so many of them in there. And why would you want that many identical Space Marines?
What would be more enticing to buy these separate bundles would be if this is the theme box for the MK4 Space Marine squad, and then you get the models, but you also get like maybe a little booklet that tells you about like how cool their armor is and all behind it, and maybe, I don't know, different weapon options or like more options like heavy weapon options. I think it's only heavy bolter or rocket launcher that comes with it, unless you can actually click the space, have a look at them. So we have a heavy bolter and a rocket launcher. Okay, can you click the second scroll?
Oh, look at all those backpacks.
Yeah, those are just also just from the box game. Yeah, there's not even more heavy weapon options in there.
If they gave you more options and they gave you maybe different shoulder pad designs, you could understand it for people that want to do the different legions or whatever.
Yeah, legion shoulder pads, like just in that box, just something that makes it stand out from the content of the box game. It's just I don't get it. There's no enticement to get those unless you have way too much money, and you just don't care at all.
Yeah, I really don't understand. Unless you're in a Games Workshop store and you only have £30 and you're desperate to get some Horus Heresy action, otherwise you'll go nuts because you've got some kind of addiction, then I could understand it then. But other than that, I don't
even
know.
Then, you could just chip in with someone. Even random people at the store. I remember back in 2nd edition, there was the old starter box with the orcs and the Space Marines. And I think most of my orc army was made out of those models, out of that starter box, just because I would wait for people to get that starter box, and I would ask them, so are you buying those for those Space Marines or the orcs? And most people were like, I want them Space Marines because they're cool. And I was like, can I take the orcs off you for like, I don't know, a bit of money? Like, and most were just like, yeah, okay, I didn't want them anyway. Back then there also wasn't eBay, so it was way easier, and they were happy to just get rid of them. And I think something like that would still work today. Just random people in a GW store be like, oh, I wish I had that one unit, and then they find each other and combine their monetary powers.
Yeah, in the comments, a few people made their thoughts known on this. So, Dino Titan Edition isn't too thrilled with the big cost difference here. Bazooka J Rambo says that there are various eBay bits sellers that you could just buy the individual models from. And apparently, you can actually fit. Apparently, you can fit Forge World bits onto these models. But again, you wouldn't need to actually get the separate boxes of them to do that.
Yeah, because the Contemptor especially.
Because they are exactly the same.
No, you don't.
So you could just buy the box.
You just need to get the Forge World bits.
Yep. It's really strange.
Yeah, my termies from that box have the have Legion shoulder pads. I just got them separately and plopped them on there, and it worked perfectly.
Although Dino Titan Edition says, if you're like me, looking at too many unpainted minis, it's more motivating to buy one box, finish it off, and then go for the next step of the project. I don't think I've ever encountered a wargamer that can't actually stand having any unpainted miniatures in their collection, because everyone has like drawers full of them.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand it a bit. I was actually in the happy position at the beginning of this year that I had all my stuff painted. And then I got the Betrayal at Kel's box, and then I had all the stuff again. But even then, it still makes more sense to just put your money together with a buddy, because you still pay way less than if you buy one single box. Plus, you get those cool floor pieces which you can use in boarding missions. Which is, you don't need super fancy terrain. You can just be like, Pal, we have 3 of these boxes bought at some point. We have 6 of these floor pans, or however they are. I forgot. And then you can just play boarding missions, 30k boarding missions. I don't know.
Now,
It's so much more.
Bazooka Jerembo has clarified that he didn't mean eBay. He thinks that eBay is ridiculous on prices and that you should use an actual bits store, like an actual website.
I did that in the past for my ogres. It can be worth it. Yeah, it's true. There are also some good bit sellers on eBay, but there's also really scammy ones who are like, I want $5 for this Space Marine arm or something. I don't know.
Well, let's stop the depressing screen share for a minute with the prices. Yeah. And Dino Titan Edition, it's better to not look at huge amounts of unpainted minis. It's totally frustrating. You know what the solution to that is? Yeah, put them in the cupboard and close the door so you can't see them. Only put on the painting table what you're actually working on at a time. Out of sight, out of mind. That's what I think.
Well, what I actually do, I do like little project boxes. I have a little like cardboard box, and I put everything in that. I put it in like a drawer with boxes, and there's my projects. And so I don't see them until I have one finished, and then I get the next box from my living room, put it on the painting table, and it's way more motivating like that.
Now, just to clarify one thing, with certain other kits, like, for example, the not sure if it's the current 40k starter box, but the one that has the Dark Angels in it.
Yeah.
And the Age of Sigmar starter box right now. The difference between those and the miniatures that you buy separately that are the same units is a big difference. Because the ones you get in the starter box aren't anywhere near as posable, and they don't have spare parts. Whereas the actual units you buy separately in boxes, you can understand why they're more expensive because you get all the different weapon options and spare pieces for conversions. So that makes sense.
You get an incentive. You have more stuff you get out of that for your money.
Yeah, but with this one, they're just exactly the same, but at a hugely inflated price.
So, yeah, just put in a smaller box and priced up ridiculously. It makes no sense.
No sense whatsoever. Now, I'm going to ask you a question now, and I think your answer is probably going to be nothing, but have you actually been working on anything hobby-wise this week, or have you just been out and about catching monsters on the streets of Germany?
At the beginning of this month, I had a ridiculous painting spree. I painted the second part of like a Nurgle army commission, and just like 2 weeks before that, I painted the first part. And I talked about them a bit in my vlogs on my channel. And I think I showed almost all the units in the Andy and Rem Show Facebook group, which people should go to. So I have painted a lot of stuff this month, just not for myself at all. And like since Pokemon Go came out in Germany, like Wednesday night, I have been just running around. I just got the 10-kilometer achievement today after like the 1.5 days or something that it's out.
How long would it previously taken you to walk 10 kilometers without catching tiny monsters?
I don't know. Like, I normally take like a hike every few months. I go hiking for like a day, and then I guess I walk like. I don't think it's not 10 kilometers. It's a bit. So and now I think I will move around way more than before, which is really good for me. Like in that regard, I'm just using that addiction to this game because I'm actually a big Pokemon fan since day one when it's the first game came out. I'm just using that addiction right now to get in better shape because I need it.
I haven't actually played any Pokemon related stuff since Pokemon Blue on the Game Boy back in the day. It's like when they first had a smaller Game Boy instead of the big giant grey one. It was a small one, but it wasn't in colour yet. I had that one. And then there was Pokemon Stadium on the Nintendo 64, which was fun for doing the battles in like better graphics. So you could actually see what the Pokemon looked like a bit better. And if you gave them custom names, they changed colour as well, which was exciting. But I haven't jumped on this particular bandwagon right now. Seems like everyone else in the world has.
I knew just exploring. I actually was into urban exploration for quite a few years. Quite heavily, actually. I did some really, I don't want to say stupid things, but risky things. And I was in top shape when I did that because you have to climb, you have to be like alert at all times. And it was a really good time for me, just physically. And Pokemon Go is just giving me an incentive. I say incentive a lot today. I like that word now. One of my favorites. Just an incentive to just go out, and I don't even realize that I'm walking because I'm playing a game. And I'm just like, oh, there's that point over there. I want to go there and check it out. And with it, suddenly it's not, after a while, it's not even only about the game anymore, because the actual stops where you get stuff are actual landmarks. It might be like a little historical thing, it might be a statue, and you actually learn about your surroundings. I moved here like 2.5 years ago or something, and in the last, what is it now, like 2 days or something, I have seen more of my area than I have in these 2 years, where I always just went my standard ways, like supermarket, train station, mailbox, whatever. So like I'm actually learning a lot about my surrounding cool and seeing what's actually about and the history of the place I'm living in. So just in that regard, it's really great.
I wonder if any of the miniature game companies are going to be jumping on this since it's become such a huge hit. I wonder if GW have got something up their sleeve. You never know.
Space Marine, go!
Yeah, you could run around being a space marine.
Yeah, then you just have to like roll a digital dice, and if you don't roll 3+, then your phone just shuts down. Like for 10 minutes, you can't.
Unless you pay extra and get like a Terminator phone, in which case you just have to roll 2+.
They could actually sell a Terminator phone. It looks just really stupid, like a Terminator with buttons and like
Nobody
a
wants
screen.
to use the plasma phone though, because it will melt your hand off.
They could bring out more can wear around your neck though, and be the cool kid at the gaming club.
Now, if anyone wants to see what I've been working on as a sneak preview with this wonderful webcam, and it will actually show up a little bit as well. Here we go. Right, that's enough of that. But that's practically finished now. Almost. Just a couple more things on there. And after this show, I think I'm going to actually make public my what I painted for June video, which is a little bit late since we're halfway through July right now. But we'll see.
After the stream, I have to go to the gym that is beside of my house and reclaim it.
Has someone just taken over your local Pokemon gym?
Yeah, for Team Blue. All the other teams can go eat a sausage. There you go. Join Team Blue or get screwed.
Now, someone did suggest something for us to talk about here, so we're just going to have a quick look at it here. This is what I could find on it. So, this is an upcoming Kickstarter, which is Shattered Void, which is apparently spaceship-based. And someone was asking whether anyone is more excited for this than anything such as Drop Fleet Commanders coming along, of course, which is the Drop Zone Commander Space Battles game. And this looks fairly similar. Let's have a look at some of the ships here. Yeah, they look quite cool. I haven't really got big into any spaceship games recently.
I have 2 Millennium Falcons for X-Wing, which I played for a while, which was fun, and then I got bored, and now they're just here, sitting on a cupboard, being Millennium Falcons.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, the spaceship games, they don't usually grab me particularly.
Yeah, same here. I like the models. I'm like, oh, I would like to paint this weird alien spaceship, but then I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to play the game because it's, I don't know. There's something about space battles that is not grabbing my imagination as much.
Well, maybe because with the scale of it and everything, it's so far removed from the person on the ground. You can't really relate to a spaceship, can you?
You can't. I think a big factor for me is when you play, let's say, a skirmish game with little guys. Like those are just the guys running around on a flat plane with maybe some hills, and it's just how it is. Like that's what the game represents it. It kind of represents how that should be in real life. But in a space battle, in most games, you are just on that two-dimensional surface. And space battles, like when you play a video game, it's all about like going about and around and under, and it's crazy. And tabletop games have a hard time capturing that fluidity and craziness of space battles for me. I know there's tabletop games that have like the like little planes like on actual sticks, on wire sticks, and you can switch the height around, which is nuts. Like maybe I could have fun with that, but yeah.
It's going to be an interesting time as well, because obviously Drop Fleet Commander.
Did you choke there a bit?
Yes. You would imagine that GW, going back to some of the old classic specialist games, probably Battlefleet Gothic is somewhere on that list of theirs. So it's going to be an interesting time for those spaceship game enthusiasts out there.
Yeah.
But I just have trouble relating to the crew compared to relating to the little guy in the skirmish game on the table.
Yeah, I can relate to orc ships in Battlefleet Gothic for some reason, because most of them have a face. I think that's because.
That could be a thing, actually. Like playing Epic in the old days, I didn't feel too removed from like the Titans, because they all had faces as well. So maybe that's it. Maybe you just need to put a face on the front of all your ships.
Yeah. I mean, you had an epic orc army with the Gargants, and they just felt like you're moving around guys. So.
We had a couple of other people drop into the audience in the last few minutes, such as Joshua Page and Rob Lloyd Sweet, which is quite a sweet name. Let's see. Bazooka Rambo, yep, Battlefleet Gothic is on the GW list. Yep, hopefully after Gorka Morka, because I want Gorka Morka to come back.
Gorka Morka would be fun. I loved it so much. Even though it was really clunky. But what can you do? Old specialist games.
I think with the whole idea of having a specialist games division now, people seem to be quite happy with what's coming out of there so far in terms of the gameplay of these kind of board games they've been doing. They aren't under the specialist games umbrella, but they are kind of similar, like the Betrayal at Calth and all that. People who actually play the games say that they're quite fun.
They're fun. I actually played the game evening. We played a few missions. It was cool, but since then I was just like, I just want the model.
And Warhammer Quest is simple and fun. All the new games they've been releasing actually have been a lot simpler than in recent times, which means that 40k players out there should probably be concerned that your rule set is going to be demolished at some point.
There will only be 2 stats, ballistic skill and movement, and that's it for the new 40k edition.
I think not just
every unit moves 4 inches and like hits on a 3+.
People would actually set themselves on fire outside of Games Workshop headquarters if that happened, not just their armies.
Possibly.
There would be a record amount of self-immolation going on outside every GW store, I think. So let's see if anyone else is saying anything in the old comments. Dino Titan Edition. No, show it completely. Well, I hope he's talking about that piece of terrain that I was showing a little bit of earlier, and nothing inappropriate.
I think he talked about... Here we go. You can now completely see this great Kokan, which has like... No, I'm lying. It's not the special one, so but you saw it. I hope you're happy now.
Bazooka Rambo, I've always wanted the 40k rules to be easy to learn. There's always been too much complexity. Yes. Now, that was kind of appealing back in the day because it was the only game in town. Almost literally.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of competition. But now everyone plays other games, generally. There aren't that many people that just stick to one system forever. So keeping the game so complicated and time-consuming is going to damage them in the long run, because people aren't going to be able to add that to their list of games.
I mean, it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget that not everyone out there who like finds a sudden interest or finds war games as their new hobby has played 40k for like 20 years. Like, I feel I can just pick up and pretty much just play 40k, and there's a few rule changes, and I just like look them up, and then I just play. Like, but someone who's just getting into the game as a new person with a completely blank mind on 40k rules, I can't even imagine how daunting that would be for them.
That would be
And to actually
crazy.
get to learn like what does the other armies do and get an idea of what your opponent may be able to do with that unit. Just nuts.
Well, Bazooka J. Rambo says, so long as the rules match the fluff and represent the weapons and races and whatnot, then that's good. I would say I don't think 40k has ever really done that, especially in recent years, because Space Marines, if you look at the fluff, one Space Marine is supposed to be able to take on an entire army. Whereas in the game, you put them against one Orc, they shoot you, you've got a 1 in 3 chance of just dropping dead from a single Orc shooting.
Yeah. Pretty much. Or just the Orc fluff was super resilient and not dying, and in the game it's just like, here's 20 Orc boys. And then there were 20 Orc boys after like one round of fire. Like, okay.
Now there's a crater with an arm sticking out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are definitely simplifying their rules and streamlining everything. So I don't think 40k will go quite as crazy in terms of change as Age of Sigmar did, because Warhammer Fantasy was a failing product line, essentially. It wasn't making enough money for it to be worth continuing with, whereas 40k probably is. That's
Pretty
the big
much.
money spinner in GW. So you would think if they're going to do anything, it would be gradual, or it'll be just streamlining rather than a complete overhaul. But you never know, they might just go nuts.
What I think will happen is they will move the 40k timeline just a tiny bit, a tiny fraction of a bit. Like, they have hinted at that, like, in lots of the new codices, like, the Emperor, like, maybe being resurrected or not, and other things happening. And then they might bring out, like, actually, like, 40k board games. And the rules will be a bit more streamlined, but it won't just, like, throw everything out of the window. They're just advancing the story and not just blowing the 40k universe up, because it's being blown up at every second of the 40k universe timeline, which is a constant blowing up that's going on there. Just a constant.
Yeah, everyone in 40k seems to be blowing up the universe, don't they? It's like
all the time.
Nuts. The Imperium seem to do more damage than anybody else. Like, oh, somebody sneezed on that planet. Exterminatus.
Yeah, it's complete star systems just getting wiped out. It's not even something someone raises an eyebrow at anymore. They're just like, yeah, whatever. And then, like, 100 years later, the Imperial Guard arrives and they're like, oh, there are no planets anymore. Well, what are we to do? Let's wait for instructions for 500 years. We sit on this asteroid.
Well, time will tell on most of the things we've discussed tonight.
Yes.
Dreadball, I think the Kickstarter launch is either next week or the week after, so we'll get some juicy info on that very, very soon. And I'll probably try and get someone either from Mantic or like one of the ultimate Dreadball experts out there on the show to talk about that when the Kickstarter's well underway. I'm not sure how long the campaign's going to be, since it's not a completely new game, so it might just be a couple of weeks, maybe a short one. We shall see. And then 40k, it's walking a tightrope right now. At any moment, one of those GW guys in a suit could just drop the hammer and completely change the entire universe, and people will be angry. We shall see.
Could happen, who knows? Did we talk about the Wasteman stuff, by the way?
We did not. People were asking, or at least one person was asking earlier on, how the new Wasteman stuff is looking.
Yeah,
and
quickly show that.
Yes, they have got some of the stuff from the Kickstarter, which was successful, by the way, which I'm going to put entirely down to their appearance on this show right at the last minute of the Kickstarter, which definitely drove it over the edge. I'm going to grab a picture right now from something that's just been very freshly sculpted, should I say. So I'll get the old screen share on that. And this is the kind of stuff that's being worked on right now. So as you can see, the top half of the body is plugged into the bottom half there, which are going to be interchangeable with all the others as well. So this is a bit more fantasy looking, but that's going to be compatible with the more sci-fi kind of body tops as well. So all the holes are going to be exactly the same size.
I mean, that guy would be right at home, like in a Chaos Dwarf army. Like as one of the whatever bulls, whatever they were named. The bull centaurs.
He would. He's got very large toes as well. Big
Yes.
toenails. He could probably do with trimming those. Can you imagine the fallout if you actually trimmed those toenails with nail clippers? People wouldn't just lose eyes, they would lose heads, I think.
Probably. You would just need a belt sander.
I think you'd need to file them down, wouldn't you, if anything?
Yeah.
So,
or just trample on the corpses and bones of your enemies until they're like rubbed down.
Yes, that is Dready's motto for life, by the way. Don't cut your toenails, just trample on the bones of your enemies to wear them down.
Yes.
There we go.
Pretty much.
So,
yes.
I think that pretty much wraps up everything that we wanted to cover on this episode. So, thanks for joining us, Dready, in your capacity as an international wargaming expert and analyst.
My pleasure.
Yeah, even if occasionally your voice was out of sync with your mouth moving now and then.
It's the same on your side, by the way. I see you talking and you're not talking, and it's so confusing.
Weird. We'll have to look back at the video and see who was really laggy. And I'm going to suspect it was you, because the German internet is notoriously bad.
Yeah, yesterday I had a weird, like there was a big bang in my house and suddenly the internet went out. And I don't know what happened still. Someone might just have ran into the cable box or something.
Or maybe there was an electric Pokemon living in there.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Entirely possible. Dino Titan Edition says that if he comes on the show at some point, then there will be definitely more talk about Blood Bowl. Must be a bit of a Blood Bowl enthusiast there. Well, when Blood Bowl is on the imminent horizon, I'm sure we'll talk about that quite a bit, because that's going to be very exciting for a lot of people out there. And with that, I'm going to switch to the beautiful logo, which we posed for earlier today.
Yes.
Didn't use any Photoshop at all with this. 100% posing. And I'll thank the audience for joining us, and I'll point them in the direction of a few things in the video description. First of all, there's the Facebook group for this show and various other things on my channel. There's of course a link to Dready's channel down there, where you can find out all kinds of amazing information on games such as Battletech, and also get incredibly narrative battle reports on there as well. And with that, we shall say good night out there, whatever you are.
Good night.